This story lets you use your imagination to think about what it might be like to travel through a book. The name of this book is Grandpa the Bookworm. Worms, worms, worms. They come in many different sizes, from very short to very long, and live in many different places. Levi put down his pencil and, laying his head on a large book, thought, "I'll just take a short nap before finishing my report on worms." His milk and cookies must have made him sleepy. Not only did Levi fall asleep, he began to dream. It was the kind of windy day that comes around only once in a very great while. A day when puffy clouds race each other across the sky and kites break loose and are never seen again. On this particularly windy day, Grandpa, who was a bookworm in Levi's dream but looked strangely like his own grandpa, was in the backyard playing with his grandchildren. Suddenly he found himself lifted by a powerful gust and sent high into the air. Up and up he sailed, so high that he could see the pastures and streams and farms and forests stretching off into the distance. Then slowly, slowly, Grandpa began to come back down. But instead of returning him to the backyard, the wind carried Grandpa through an open window in the great house nearby, where he landed on the pages of a great book. And what a book it was! He had never seen one so amazing. It was a sort you never see anymore, except in a museum or a fine collection. It was filled with pages of beautiful lettering, some shining in pure gold. The pages were sweet-tasting, a good thing because all his sailing around had made Grandpa quite hungry. Before he could take a first bite, wham! The book was suddenly closed, leaving him stuck inside in the dark. Grandpa, a sensible fellow, carried a headlamp just in case something like this happened. Now, if you or I had been in Grandpa's situation, we might have felt afraid and all alone. But Grandpa was a bookworm, and bookworms love being inside books. It's only a matter of time until I eat my way up through all the pages and come out the front cover, Grandpa thought to himself. In the meantime, he very sensibly finished his lunch, which left a small grandpa-sized hole in 2 of the pages. Then, being quite tired, he very sensibly curled up and went to sleep. But after one especially long day of eating, bookworms call it drilling, he felt tired and discouraged. "More pages than I thought," Grandpa mumbled as he lay down. As he was about to close his eyes, he noticed the words next to the little tunnel he was making. He had never thought to actually read the words on the pages he was eating. The words that Grandpa read were, "So loved," and they reminded him that he was much loved by his family and friends. He thought especially of his grandchildren and how happy he would be to see their faces. He smiled and fell asleep. Grandpa's journey went on for many days. How many it is hard to say, since it was always dark inside the great book and he was never sure when it was daytime or nighttime. But after the meal that he called supper and before going to sleep, he always read the words next to where he had stopped. The words were very big and Grandpa was very small, so at most he could read only 1 or 2 of them. But each time they comforted him. One night he slept next to rest. Another night he curled up on top of hope. One day when he was exhausted, he came to the word strength. Several days later he began to doubt he would ever make it to the start of the book. He stopped at trust. Perhaps the best words of all came on a dark day when Grandpa was filled with fear that maybe he was going the wrong way. "Am I eating up toward the front cover or down toward the table?" he wondered. "Maybe I should turn around." But just as he was turning back, he saw the words, "Follow me," telling him he had been going the right way, and so up he went. At last there came a day when Grandpa knew that he had almost made it because he came across the words, "In the beginning." These words had been written in many colors using especially big and beautiful letters. Grandpa slept beside them that night, knowing that the next day he would finally make it through the front of the book and reach the outside world. And that was exactly what happened. After a delicious final meal of oak, which was what the cover of the great book was made of, Grandpa burst into the sunlight. He crawled out the window, down the wall of the great house, across the grass, and into his own backyard, where his grandchildren came running and wanted to hear all about where he had been. Grandpa had lots to tell them about his adventure in the great house and the amazing book he found there. He told them about the words that had been there to encourage him just when he needed them most. When Levi woke up, he rubbed his eyes. In front of him lay his unfinished report, his pencil, and a very large, beautiful Bible. On the front cover of the Bible was a small hole just the size of a bookworm. Let's find out a little bit of the background of what this book might have been like. The great house that Grandpa visited was a medieval monastery where monks lived and worshipped. The amazing book that Grandpa landed in was an illuminated manuscript of the Bible. These rare and precious books were each copied by hand because there was no printing press at the time. The monks worked very hard to make them especially beautiful. In the picture, the author's daughters, Sonia, Lisa, and Christina, are holding an illuminated manuscript with a hole made by a real bookworm. You may have guessed some of the verses that Grandpa came to. The page that Grandpa landed on was John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life.